The wind howled across the desert, kicking up sand that scratched against the rusty walls of Tom Harris's workshop. He was elbow-deep in the guts of an old pickup truck, his hands black with grease, when the storm started. The radio crackled with static, spitting out bits of a weather report about rare lightning in the area. Tom didn't care much. Storms came and went in this nowhere town, and he liked the quiet it brought, no customers banging on his door, just him and the machines. At 32, he'd settled into a life of fixing things, though his dreams whispered of adventure beyond the dunes. He wiped sweat from his brow and reached for a wrench when a sound cut through the wind, a sharp, piercing cry. It wasn't human, not quite, but it tugged at something deep inside him. Tom froze, listening. The cry came again, louder, from just outside. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the swirling dust, the beam slicing through the dark. At the edge of his porch, near a pile of scrap metal, he saw it, a bundle of shimmering cloth, moving slightly. His heart thudded as he knelt and peeled back the fabric. A tiny face stared up at him, pale blue skin, huge silver eyes, and a wisp of white hair. It was a baby, no doubt, but not one from Earth. Its cries softened as Tom's light hit it, those eyes locking onto his with a strange trust. He swallowed hard, looking around. The desert stretched out empty, the storm hiding any clues. "Who leaves a kid out here?" he muttered, his voice lost in the wind. Before he could think, a shadow moved near the edge of his property, a tall, thin figure staggering against the gale. Tom stood, flashlight raised, and called out, "Hey! Who's there?" The figure froze, then stepped closer. Under the light, he saw her, a woman with skin like the baby's, blue and faintly glowing, her white hair tangled and wet. She wore a torn suit that shimmered like liquid metal, and her silver eyes were wide with fear. "Please," she said, her voice rough but clear, "hide him. They're coming." She glanced at the bundle in Tom's arms, her hands trembling. I can't keep him safe anymore." Tom's mind raced. "Who's coming? What is this?" He held the baby tighter, its warmth seeping through the strange cloth. The woman took a shaky step forward, then stopped, clutching her side where a dark stain spread across her suit. "Hunters," she whispered. "From my world. They'll kill him, and me. Please, just take him. You're my only hope." Her gaze darted behind her, as if expecting shadows to lunge from the storm. Tom's gut twisted. He wasn't a hero. He fixed trucks, not lives. But the baby squirmed against him, and the woman's desperation hit him like a punch. "You're hurt," he said, nodding at her side. "You can't just leave him and run off to die." "I have no choice," she snapped, though her voice cracked. "They'll find us soon. If I go, they might follow me instead." She turned, ready to vanish into the night. "Wait!" Tom shouted. Lightning flashed, lighting up her exhausted face. "Get inside. Both of you. I'm not letting a kid freeze out here, or you bleed out in my yard." She hesitated, then nodded, stumbling toward the workshop door as Tom guided her in, baby still in his arms. Inside, the wind's roar dulled to a hum. Tom set the baby on a blanket atop his workbench, its cries fading to soft whimpers. The woman sank onto a stool, clutching her side. Up close, she was striking, sharp cheekbones, a graceful neck, but her beauty was overshadowed by pain. "I'm Tom," he said, grabbing a first aid kit from a shelf. "Who are you? And what's chasing you?" She took a ragged breath. "I'm Lyra. This is my son, Kale. We're from Vera, a planet far from here. My people, they don't allow children like him." Her eyes dropped to Kale, filled with a fierce love. "His father was human. That's a crime to them." Tom paused, a bandage in hand. "Human? You mean, he's half like me?" Lyra nodded, and he whistled low. "That's wild. So these hunters, they're after him because of that? Yes, she said. And me, for daring to have him. I fled here, to Earth, hoping to hide. But they tracked me. I thought, if I left him with someone kind, he might live. She winced as Tom pressed a cloth to her wound, cleaning it gently. Kind, huh? You don't even know me, he said, though his tone softened. How'd you pick my doorstep? I watched you, Lyra admitted. Yesterday, you helped a man with a broken car, no charge. I saw goodness in you. Her silver eyes met his, steady despite her pain. Tom snorted, hiding a flush. Yeah, well, I'm no saint. But I'm not dumping a kid in the desert either. He finished bandaging her, then glanced at Cale. He's quiet now. Hungry, maybe. Lyra nodded. He can eat human food, milk, soft things. Our bodies adapt. Tom rummaged through his tiny kitchen, finding a carton of milk and a spoon. He warmed it slightly, and Lyra fed Cale with shaky hands, the baby gulping it down. As she worked, a sharp bang echoed outside, metal hitting metal. Tom tensed, peering through a cracked window. Two sleek, black shapes moved in the storm, figures too tall, too fast to be human. Friends of yours? He asked, voice low. Lyra paled. Hunters. They found us. She clutched Cale, panic rising. We have to go. Tom grabbed his keys from a hook. My truck's out back. Old, but it runs. Get him ready. He darted to a toolbox, pulling out a crowbar, just in case. Lyra wrapped Cale in the glowing cloth, her movements quick despite her injury. They slipped out the rear door as a crash sounded from the front, hunters breaking in. Tom's truck sat under a tarp, a beat-up beast he'd rebuilt himself. He yanked the cover off, ushering Lyra and Cale into the cab. The engine roared to life as headlights pierced the dust behind them. Hold on. Tom floored it, tires spinning in the sand before catching grip. The truck bounced over dunes, the storm masking their trail. In the mirror, Tom saw the hunter's sleek vehicle, a hovering thing with glowing lines, gain ground. They're fast, Lyra gasped, cradling Cale. Yeah, but I know this land, Tom growled. He swerved toward a narrow canyon, a shortcut he'd used for years. The truck scraped rock walls, but the hunter's craft couldn't follow. It veered off, stuck, as Tom pushed deeper into the dark. After tense minutes, the canyon opened to a flat plain. Tom slowed, chest heaving. Lost, for now, he said. Lyra stared at him, amazement breaking through her fear. You saved us, she whispered. Not yet, Tom replied, eyes on the horizon. But I'm in this now. We'll figure it out. The storm raged on, but inside the truck, a spark of hope flickered, a human and an alien, bound by a cry in the dark, ready to face whatever came next. The truck rumbled over the uneven desert floor, its headlights cutting through the fading storm. Tom gripped the wheel, his knuckles white, while Lyra sat beside him, clutching Cale to her chest. The baby's silver eyes peeked out from the glowing cloth, wide and curious, oblivious to the danger they'd just escaped. The canyon had bought them time, but Tom knew it wouldn't last. Those hunters, whatever they were, moved like nothing he'd ever seen, and their hovering craft screamed technology far beyond his greasy toolbox. Where do we go now? Lyra asked, her voice tight but steady. She glanced out the cracked side window, scanning the dark for any sign of pursuit. Tom chewed his lip, mind racing. Away from town, for starters. Too many eyes there, and I don't trust anyone not to sell us out if those things start asking questions. He jerked the wheel, turning the truck onto a faint dirt track he'd used years ago to haul scrap. We need distance, and a plan. Lyra nodded, her blue skin catching the dim dashboard light. They'll keep coming. Varen hunters don't stop. They're trained to track across stars, not just planets. She hesitated, then added, I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Don't be, Tom said gruffly, eyes on the road. I chose to help. Could have walked away, but I didn't. He shot her a quick glance. Tell me about these hunters. What are we up against? Lyra took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around Kale. They're enforcers from my world, Vera. My people value purity above everything. Bloodlines, genes, all of it. Kale's father was a human explorer who visited our planet years ago. We worked together, studied each other's cultures. Then, we fell in love. Her voice softened, then hardened. When I got pregnant, he swore he'd stand by me. But when Kale was born, when they saw his human traits, my family called it a disgrace. The law demanded his death, and mine for bearing him. Tom's jaw clenched. That's insane. Killing a kid for being different. It's their way, Lyra said bitterly. The hunters were sent to cleanse the shame. I ran instead, stole a shuttle, and crashed here on Earth. I thought I could hide, but their tech is too good. That craft you saw, it's just one tool. They have drones, sensors, weapons that can melt steel. Great, Tom muttered, shifting gears as the truck climbed a low hill. And here I am with a crowbar and a bad attitude. He forced a grin, trying to lighten the mood, but Lyra's grim expression didn't shift. The track leveled out into a stretch of scrubland dotted with twisted bushes. Tom slowed the truck, checking the mirrors. Nothing moved behind them, yet. Okay, he said, we've got a breather. Tell me about Kale's dad. Where's he now? Lyra's gaze dropped to her son, pain flickering across her face. Gone. He left before Kale was born. Said he couldn't handle the pressure, my family, the laws. He went back to Earth, disappeared. I don't even know if he's alive. She stroked Kale's white hair. All I have left is him. Tom felt a pang of anger, at the coward who'd abandoned her, at a world that hunted its own. Well, he's got you. And now me, for what it's worth. We'll keep him safe. Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes searching his face. Why risk so much for us? You don't owe me anything. Tom shrugged, uncomfortable with the question. Because it's right. And because. I don't know, maybe I needed something worth fighting for. Life's been too quiet lately. He didn't say more, but the truth hung there, he'd been drifting, and this strange duo had shaken him awake. A faint hum broke the silence, growing louder. Lyra tensed. That's them, she whispered. Tom cursed under his breath, spotting a flicker of light in the sky, a small, dart-like drone weaving through the clouds. It was fast, too fast, and heading their way. Hold tight, Tom said, slamming the gas pedal. The truck jolted forward, bouncing over rocks. The drone closed in, its hum turning to a whine. A red beam shot from it, slicing into the ground ahead and sending up a spray of dirt. They're warning us. Lyra shouted, shielding Kale. Next shot won't miss. Not if I can help it, Tom growled. He yanked the wheel, swerving toward a cluster of boulders. The truck skidded, tires screeching, as he wedged it into a tight gap between the rocks. The drone swooped overhead, its beam missing by inches and scorching the stone. Tom killed the engine, plunging them into silence. The drone circled, its light sweeping the area. Stay low, he hissed. Lyra crouched, Kale whimpering softly. Tom grabbed a tarp from the truck bed and threw it over the cab, hoping it'd mask their heat or whatever the drone tracked. Minutes dragged on, the drone's hum fading then returning. Tom's heart pounded, but his mind churned. He couldn't outrun that thing, not in this old heap. He needed to fight back. Lyra, he whispered, that drone, can it be tricked? She nodded slowly. It follows energy signals, heat, motion. If we confuse it, it might lose us. Got it. Tom rummaged in the truck bed, pulling out a rusty gas can and a flare from his emergency kit. Stay here. He slipped out, crouching low, and darted to a nearby bush. The drone's light swept close as he doused the can with gas, lit the flare, and tossed it inside. Flames erupted, heat rolling off in waves. The drone veered toward the fire, its beam locking onto the decoy. Tom sprinted back, diving into the truck as the drone fired, blasting the can into a fireball. The explosion rattled the rocks, and the drone wobbled, sensors overloaded. Go! Lyra urged. Tom started the engine and peeled out, the tarp flapping loose. The drone hovered, disoriented, as they sped into the night. After a mile, its light vanished behind them. Tom let out a shaky laugh. That worked. Can't believe it worked. Lyra stared at him, a faint smile breaking through her tension. You're clever, Tom Harris. More than you think. Yeah, well, desperation's a good teacher, he said, grinning back. The road stretched ahead, dark and uncertain, but a spark of trust glowed between them now, human grit meeting alien resolve. They drove until dawn painted the sky orange, stopping at an abandoned barn Tom remembered from a scavenging trip. The truck creaked as he parked behind its sagging walls, hidden from the road. Lyra stepped out, stretching, while Cale cooed in her arms. Tom checked the horizon, no drones, no lights. For now, they were safe. We can't keep running blind, Tom said, leaning against the truck. We need a destination, somewhere they can't touch you. Lyra nodded, her expression grim. There's talk among my kind, rumors of a place on Earth for people like us. A sanctuary. But I don't know where. I might, Tom said, an idea flickering. An old friend, Mia, she works for the government, something hush-hush. If anyone knows about a sanctuary, it's her. He pulled a battered phone from his pocket. No signal out here, but we'll find one soon. Lyra tilted her head. You trust her? Used to, Tom said. We had a falling out years back, dumb stuff, pride mostly. But she's solid. If she can help, she will. Lyra studied him, then nodded. Then we try. For Cale. For all of us, Tom corrected. He climbed back into the truck, rigging a blanket over the seats for shade. Rest up. I'll keep watch. As Lyra settled with Cale, Tom sat on the hood, eyes on the dawn. He'd bought them time with a flare and some luck, but the hunters wouldn't quit. He thought of Lyra's story, her love, her betrayal, her fight, and felt a fire kindle in him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving something, to her, to himself, maybe to the universe. Whatever came next, he'd face it head-on, armed with nothing but his hands and a stubborn streak a mile wide. The barn creaked in the wind, and Cale's soft babbling drifted from inside. Tom smiled faintly. He wasn't alone anymore, and that, he realized, was worth everything. The sun climbed high over the desert, baking the cracked earth and the sagging barn where Tom, Lyra, and Cale had taken refuge. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint smell of old hay. Tom sat cross-legged on the floor, fiddling with his phone, trying to catch a signal. Lyra rocked Cale gently, his silver eyes drooping as he drifted to sleep. The quiet was a fragile thing. Tom knew the hunters were out there, regrouping, and their last escape had been too close for comfort. Got it, Tom said, holding the phone up as 2 bars flickered on the screen. Weak, but it'll do. He dialed a number he hadn't called in years, each ring tightening the knot in his stomach. Lyra watched him, her blue face calm but her silver eyes sharp with hope. Finally, a voice crackled through. Tom. That really you? It was Mia, older, rougher, but still the same friend he'd once trusted with everything. Yeah, Mia, it's me, Tom said, keeping his tone steady. I need your help. Big time. A pause stretched long enough to make him sweat. Last time we talked, you said I was a sellout for taking that government job, Mia replied, half teasing, half wary. What's changed? Everything, Tom said. Look, I can't explain it all now. I've got people with me. They're in trouble, alien trouble. We need a safe place, somewhere off the grid. You still in that spooky department? Mia's sigh hissed through the line. Yeah, I'm still with the extraterrestrial liaison unit. Alien trouble, huh? You're not messing with me. Dead serious, Tom said. They're after a mother and her kid. I've seen the hunters, fast, techie, mean. We barely got away last night. Another pause, then Mia's voice dropped low. There's a sanctuary, Colorado, hidden in the mountains. It's for refugees, human-alien mixes, defectors. Off the books, treaty protected. I can get you coordinates, but getting there's on you. And Tom? If you're caught, I can't pull you out. Understood, Tom said, relief washing over him. Send me the spot. We'll make it. Check your messages in 10. And Tom, be careful. You always were too stubborn for your own good. The line clicked dead. Tom lowered the phone, meeting Lyra's gaze. We've got a destination. Colorado. Sanctuary. Ever been to the mountains? Lyra shook her head. Only seen them in data files. Cold, high, rocky. Pretty much, Tom said, cracking a grin. We'll need to move fast. Those hunters won't stay confused forever. They packed what little they had, some food, water, the glowing cloth around Kale, and climbed into the truck. The engine groaned but started, and Tom pointed them west, the barn shrinking in the rearview mirror. The desert gave way to scrubby hills, the road winding toward the promise of safety. Lyra stayed quiet, her eyes flicking to the sky, until she spoke softly. Thank you, Tom. For trusting your friend. For all of this. Don't thank me yet, he said. We're not there. But Mia's good people. She'll come through. Hours passed, the sun dipping low, painting the hills gold. Tom's hands ached from gripping the wheel, but he pushed on, fueled by adrenaline and the weight of Lyra's faith in him. Then, a shadow crossed the sky, a sleek, dart-like drone, smaller than the last but just as deadly. Its hum filled the air, and a red beam lanced down, blasting a crater in the road ahead. Damn it! Tom swerved, the truck skidding as dirt rained around them. Lyra clutched Kale, her breath hitching. They found us again. The drone swooped, firing another beam that scorched the truck's bumper. Tom floored it, weaving between boulders, but the drone matched every move, relentless. We can't outrun that thing, he growled. Need another trick. Lyra's eyes narrowed. It tracks energy, like before. Can you make another fire? No time, Tom said, scanning the terrain. Then he spotted it, a dry riverbed ahead, lined with overhanging cliffs. Hold on tight. He yanked the wheel, plunging the truck into the shallow gully. The drone followed, its beam carving grooves in the sand. Tom pushed the truck harder, the cliffs closing in. The drone was fast, but the space was tight. He waited until it was right behind them, then slammed the brakes. The truck lurched, and the drone shot past, unable to stop. Tom gunned the engine, ramming the truck's reinforced grille into the drone's tail. Metal crunched, and the drone spun, crashing into the cliff wall in a burst of sparks. Lyra gasped as the wreckage smoked behind them. You destroyed it. Had to, Tom said, breathing hard. But they'll send more. We've got to keep moving. He eased the truck out of the riverbed, the bumper dented but holding. The victory was small, but it bought them time. Night fell as they crossed into Colorado, the air cooling as the road climbed into the mountains. Pine trees loomed, their shadows dancing in the headlights. Tom's phone buzzed, Mia's coordinates, a dot deep in the wilderness. "We're close," he said. "Few more hours." Lyra nodded, but her face tightened. "They'll adapt." That drone wasn't alone. Hunters work in pairs, ground and air. The others still out there. Tom cursed silently. She was right, nothing this easy lasted. He kept driving, the truck groaning up steep switchbacks, until a new sound cut through the night, a low, rhythmic thrum, like a heartbeat. Headlights flashed in the mirror, a black, sleek vehicle, too smooth to be human-made, gaining fast. "There's the ground team," Lyra said, her voice trembling. Cale whimpered, sensing her fear. Tom's mind raced. The truck couldn't outpace that thing, not on these roads. He needed a gambit, something crazy. "Lyra, can you drive?" She blinked. "I've piloted shuttles." "Your machine, yes, I think so." "Good." Tom slowed the truck, pointing to a narrow turnout ahead. "Take the wheel. Keep going toward the coordinates. I'll deal with them." "What?" Lyra grabbed his arm. "You can't fight them alone." "Not fighting," Tom said, forcing a grin. "Distracting. Trust me." He slid out as the truck rolled to a stop, Lyra scrambling into the driver's seat. The hunter's vehicle was 100 yards back, closing fast. Tom grabbed the crowbar and a spare gas can from the truck bed, sprinting into the trees. He heard Lyra gun the engine, the truck lurching away. The hunter's vehicle slowed, its lights sweeping the turnout. Two figures emerged, tall, blue-skinned like Lyra, but armored, their movements fluid and deadly. They carried staffs that glowed at the tips, crackling with energy. Tom crouched behind a pine, heart pounding. He sloshed gas onto the ground, trailing it back to the can, then struck a match from his pocket. Flames leaped up, a wall of fire between him and the hunters. They hissed, alien words he didn't understand, and split up, circling the blaze. He bolted, leading them deeper into the woods. The truck's rumble faded as Lyra drove off, and Tom prayed she'd make it. A staff's energy bolt sizzled past, splintering a tree. He ducked, rolling down a slope, then chucked the crowbar at a hunter's legs. It tripped, crashing into the dirt, but the other leaped over, impossibly fast. Tom scrambled up, chest burning, and spotted the truck's tire tracks in the distance. Lyra was still moving. He turned, facing the second hunter as it raised its staff. No time to think, he dove, tackling its knees. They hit the ground hard, the staff skittering away. The hunter snarled, pinning Tom with inhuman strength, but he jammed his elbow into its face, breaking free. He ran, zigzagging through the trees, until he stumbled onto the road. The truck was gone, good. The hunter's vehicle sat empty, but one was limping back, staff in hand. Tom sprinted uphill, legs screaming, until he found a ledge overlooking the pass. Below, the hunter scanned for him, its partner joining it. Tom sank down, catching his breath. He'd lost his truck, his weapon, everything but his life. But Lyra and Cale had a shot. He waited, hidden, until the hunters climbed into their craft and sped off, chasing the wrong direction. Hours later, as dawn broke, Tom hiked toward the coordinates, exhaustion dragging at him. The sanctuary emerged from the mist, a cluster of cabins nestled in a valley, guarded by humans and aliens alike. Lyra stood at the edge, Cale in her arms, her silver eyes lighting up when she saw him. "You made it," she said, voice thick with relief. "Told you I would," Tom replied, grinning despite the ache in his bones. They'd reached the edge of safety, but the hunters' shadows loomed. Sanctuary wasn't the end, it was a new fight, and Tom was ready. The sanctuary nestled in the mountain valley glowed faintly under the dawn sky, a patchwork of cabins and domes surrounded by jagged peaks. Tom trudged down the slope, every muscle screaming from the night's chaos, but the sight of Lyra waiting for him, with Kale safe in her arms, kept him moving. Her silver eyes shone with relief as he approached, and for the first time since they'd met, a real smile curved her lips. "You're alive," she said, stepping closer. Kale cooed, reaching out with tiny blue hands, and Tom couldn't help but grin back, despite the dirt streaking his face and the bruises blooming on his ribs. "Takes more than a couple of hunters to stop me," he said, though his voice rasped with exhaustion. "You made it here okay?" Lyra nodded. "The truck held. They let us in, no questions, just like your friend promised." She glanced at the sanctuary behind her, where figures moved, some human, some alien, all working together. "This place, it's more than I hoped." Tom followed her gaze. The valley buzzed with quiet purpose. A human woman hauled crates alongside a tall, green-skinned alien. A child with shimmering scales chased a ball near a stream. It was messy, imperfect, but alive, a haven carved out of secrecy and defiance. "Yeah," he said softly. "Looks like a fresh start." Before they could say more, a woman strode toward them, short, wiry, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun. "Mia." Tom tensed, old arguments flickering in his mind, but her sharp eyes softened as she stopped in front of him. "You look like hell, Tom," she said, then smirked. "Guess I shouldn't be surprised you pulled this off." "Had help," Tom replied, nodding at Lyra. "Mia, this is Lyra and Kale." "Lyra, my old friend, who's apparently a big shot now." Mia extended a hand, and Lyra shook it, her grip firm despite her weariness. "Thank you for this," Lyra said. "We had nowhere else." "Don't thank me yet," Mia said, her tone brisk. "You're safe for now, but those hunters won't quit. They've been sniffing around the region, drones, ground teams. We've got defenses, but you stirred a hive." Tom's stomach sank. "They followed us here?" "Not yet," Mia said. "But they're close. We've got jamming tech to mask the valley, but if they get a lock," she trailed off, then clapped Tom on the shoulder. "Rest up. We'll talk strategy later." She led them to a small cabin, wood walls, a cot, a crib for Kale. Tom collapsed onto a chair, while Lyra settled Kale into the crib, humming a strange, lilting tune. Mia left them with a promise to return, and the quiet wrapped around them like a blanket. For a moment, Tom let himself breathe, the weight of their escape settling in. Lyra sat across from him, her silver eyes steady. "You gave up your truck, your home, for us. Why?" Tom rubbed his neck, dodging the question. "Wasn't much of a home. Just a place to sleep. Besides, you and Kale needed it more." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "What's next for you here?" "I don't know," Lyra admitted. "Sanctuary means safety, but my people won't stop. They see Kale as a threat, a crack in their perfect order." She brushed her son's hair, her touch tender. "Back on Vera, we used to explore, connect with other worlds. Now it's all control, purity. I want him to know something better." Tom nodded, a spark igniting in him. "Then we make it better. Together." Their peace shattered at dusk. A low hum rolled through the valley, followed by shouts. Tom bolted to the window. 3 sleek crafts hovered above the tree line, their hulls glinting like knives. Hunters. Drones buzzed from their sides, red beams slicing into the ground as sanctuary guards fired back with rifles and strange, glowing weapons. "They found us," Lyra whispered, scooping Kale from the crib. Her face hardened. "I won't let them take him." "Neither will I," Tom said, grabbing a metal pipe from the cabin's corner. Mia burst in, breathless, a pistol in one hand and a device in the other, a palm-sized disc pulsing with blue light. They cracked our jammers, she snapped. We've got minutes before they overwhelm us. This, she held up the disk, is a disruptor. Varen tech, scavenged from a crash. Short range, fries their systems. Someone's got to get close. Tom took it without hesitation. Tell me how. Push the center, throw it at their crafts. 10-second delay, then boom, EMP burst. But you'll be exposed. Mia's eyes searched his. You sure? Been dodging them all week, Tom said, forcing a grin. What's one more run? Lyra grabbed his arm. Tom, no. You've done enough. He met her gaze, steady. Not yet. You said it, Kale deserves better. Let me give him that. She hesitated, then nodded, silver eyes fierce with trust. Mia barked orders into a radio as Tom slipped out, the disruptor cold in his hand. The valley was chaos, explosions lit the night, guards clashed with hunters dropping from the crafts. Tom sprinted toward the nearest ship, its ramp lowering as two armored Varens emerged, staffs crackling. A beam grazed his shoulder, searing pain flaring, but he ducked behind a crate, heart pounding. Lyra appeared beside him, a stolen staff in her hands. You're not doing this alone, she said, firing a bolt that sent a hunter sprawling. Tom gaped, then grinned, her aim was perfect. Guess not, he said. Together, they pushed forward, Lyra covering him as he weaved through the fray. A hunter lunged, and Tom swung the pipe, cracking its helmet. Lyra blasted another, her movements swift despite her injury. They reached the craft's shadow. Tom pressed the disruptor's center, it hummed, vibrating, and hurled it up the ramp. Down, he yelled, tackling Lyra behind a rock. 10 seconds later, a dull whump sounded, and the craft's lights flickered out. It listed, crashing into the dirt, drones falling like dead flies. The other crafts wavered, their pilots shouting in alien tongues. Sanctuary guards pressed the advantage, driving them back. Tom and Lyra scrambled to their feet, joining Mia at the valley's edge as the last craft retreated into the night, its hum fading. Breathing hard, Tom wiped sweat from his brow. Think that scared him off? For now, Mia said, holstering her gun. They'll regroup, but we've got time to strengthen this place. You two just bought us a hell of a win. Lyra clutched Kale, who'd been hidden with a guard during the fight. You risked everything, she said to Tom, voice thick. Worth it, he replied, meeting her eyes. You fought too. We're a team now. Mia smirked. Team, huh? Well, Sanctuary could use you both. Lyra, your knowledge, Tom, your guts. Stay, help us build this into something stronger. Tom glanced at Lyra, who nodded slowly. For Kale, she said. And maybe, for us. Yeah, Tom agreed, a weight lifting from him. For us. Days later, the valley settled into a new rhythm. Tom worked with engineers, human and alien, rigging defenses from scavenged Varen tech. Lyra taught Kale and other hybrid kids bits of her culture, her voice ringing with forgotten songs of exploration. One night, they sat on a hill overlooking the sanctuary, stars blazing above. Vera's up there, Lyra said, pointing to a bright speck. But this feels more like home now. Tom followed her gaze, the universe sprawling before them. Never thought I'd end up here, fighting aliens, saving kids. Guess life's funny that way. Lyra smiled, resting her hand near his. The universe has plans we don't see. I'm glad it brought me to you. Me too, Tom said, his voice quiet but sure. The stars glittered, endless and wild, and for the first time, he didn't feel small beneath them. He defied them, with Lyra, with Kale, and whatever came next, they'd face it together. The story wasn't over, it was just beginning, a spark of defiance lighting the dark.